focus the energy in the unique way that HAARP can now focus that energy. In terms of the key people on this project, John Heckscher is the military's program manager. He is also a geophysicist based out of Haskell Air Force Base. The Air Force being sort of the lead on the project. Bernard Eastland in a secondary role in many respects in terms of where he sits today. I mean, basically, once he came out with his patents, the military took those patents through ARCO Power Technologies and then sort of shuffled Bernard off to the side. The other inventors, however, stayed in the game. And what was interesting is about how the key personnel sort of develop in this story and in this project. In the RFP, the request for proposal put out by the military originally for this project, that's the document that governs sort of the bidding and contracting process. The only thing that was considered proprietary or secret in that document was the names of the key personnel assigned by ARCO Power Technologies. And this is interesting because it's those key personnel that become important in linking some of these technologies together. What was interesting about the way those were segregated or kept out of the picture, normally if something is classified, the military takes a black line and just rolls it right through the lettering so you can't read through it. In this case, they used a yellow sticky note, which when you burn it on a Xerox machine and then you hold it up to the light, it bleeds through and you can read the names, which is exactly what we did. And in that case, we were able to tie in the key personnel assigned to the project to some of the specific patents that reference these in its work, which brings us right back to Bernard Eastland again. More than that, when we tie it into the original military documents on the project from 1990 and 1991, all of those applications in those other patents clearly jump out, and they're absolutely the same thing. When you look at the key personnel in terms of sort of where it goes from here, it pretty well tells the story. I mean, it is a university-run project on the front end, but they really don't have much to do with it as much as providing a few technicians. It's really a military program. It's also designed on a couple of other bases. It was designed in the specification to run remote, so it can be operated from any place in the world that has communication systems sophisticated enough to interface with its computers. And more than that, it's also designed modularly, so they can continue to add to the antenna array, making it larger and larger in each edition without throwing away any of the old components. So it's a modular, versatile tool as well. When you think about the corporations and sort of how the technologies tie together, let's talk a little bit about this bidding process that led to ARCO Power Technologies getting this award. ARCO Power Technologies, according to Dun & Bradstreet, is a $5 million a year company as of 1994. Pretty small by anyone's standards. And as a subsidiary, it had virtually no background in military contracting experience. Now, when they bid on this project, they bid against a company called Raytheon Corporation. Raytheon is one of the largest military contractors in the world, with $10.2 billion a year in 1994 in annual sales, compared to the $5 million annual sales of ARCO Power Technologies. The initial contract on this project, however, was for $30 million. When you think about a $5 million company winning a $30 million contract, when they're bidding against a much, much larger company, that certainly raises some questions. But not only did they win the first phase, they also won the second phase of the contract for $175 million, although that phase is currently not funded by the United States Congress. Again, it draws lots of questions for how such a small company could win such a large contract with no military experience. Raytheon, on the other hand, was the developer of the Patriot weapon system, missile system that was used in the Middle East in our conflict there with Iraq. So it's a system and a company that's capable of doing much, much more than an oil and gas company in Alaska. So how can a company that small gain this kind of a contract? There's only one way, and that's with proprietary information, knowledge so specialized or so carefully controlled by the company no one else has access to it. In that case, it's the package of 12 patents surrounding the HAARP project. What then happened becomes even more interesting in terms of corporate structure on the technology. The company, ARCO Power Technologies Incorporated, was sold out to a company called E-Systems. E-Systems bought it out in June of 1994. E-Systems is one of the most secret companies in the United States in terms of their primary contracting experience. They are a $2.1 billion a year firm. Of that $2.1 billion a year, $1.8 billion of that is for national security organizations such as the CIA, military intelligence, and other intelligence organizations. Of that $1.8 billion, $800 million are black projects. Those are projects so secret the United States Congress is unaware of what they're funding. In terms of this type of company and what they're doing with this project, what did they get when they bought out Arco Power Technologies? They got the second phase of the construction because the first phase was already completed, and they got a package of 12 patents. What's interesting about E-Systems is they were featured on a 60-minute segment the last week of February 1995, which really just amplifies what I've just said in terms of what kind of company they are and what kind of work they do. They were also featured in a 1994, an October 1994 article in the Washington Post. It was a front-page article, again, describing exactly what I've described, a very secret, super-secret company specializing in surveillance technologies, primarily for intelligence organizations in the United States. What becomes even more interesting is the next corporate merger or buyout, and this buyout involved, again, Raytheon Corporation. And if you remember, that's a company that lost the original bid on this project. Well, Raytheon bought out E-Systems and all of the rights to this particular technology, along with the second phase of the project. So now Raytheon, one of the largest military contractors in the world, is in control of a cluster of technologies that become quite unique and quite interesting. As I said in the very beginning of this presentation today, what we're really talking about is a ground-based Star Wars weapon system. Why would Raytheon have an interest in such a system? That's a system that would provide for them, at its full development, perhaps billions and billions of dollars in government weapons money. When you think about HAARP as a versatile weapons system, not just for its surveillance capabilities, but let's talk about a few of the other capabilities that this system has. One of the primary movers in the project early on was the idea that this system could be used for also geophysical probing. Now, what exactly is geophysical probing? It's the idea of looking into the Earth to see what structures might be under its surface several miles deep. What the military calls this particular application is Earth-penetrating tomography, the idea of looking into the Earth. What's interesting about this particular application is in 1994, when the HAARP program planners went to the United States Senate to ask for additional money for their second phase of the project, the Senate said no. Not until Earth-penetrating tomography became a higher priority on the project, which is exactly what military planners began to work towards. In fact, in 1996, this year, it is the only application, the only testing funded by the United States Congress. They were able to get $15 million for this funding, which actually will allow them to begin testing this year. Now, what are they looking for in this particular application? What's interesting in this application is the Senate, when the HAARP planners went in and sort of sold the project to the Defense Subcommittee of the Senate, they emphasized this application being useful for non-proliferation and counter-proliferation, the idea of finding third world countries' nuclear facilities, testing facilities, and storage facilities, which, as John Heckscher said to us in an interview, would be useful had we had this technology during the Gulf War. For the Senate, it's a priority. For the United States Congress, it's a priority. And certainly many Americans would feel the same way, that this is an important area that we need to have a handle on in terms of what's going on in nuclear arms development around the world. What's unfortunate about the particular application is some of the side effects that we're going to talk about as we go through this presentation today regarding the physiological effects of those types of systems on human beings. But we'll get to that in a while. One of the other applications of this technology, and one that the military spoke about early on, in fact, it's the only one that they spoke about early on in what they called their fact sheets,